At 2 a.m., my stepbrother attacked me with a screwdriver. Pain shot through my shoulder as my parents laughed. Stop overreacting, blood pouring down with my last breath. I sent an SOS before passing out. What came next completely shook the entire courtroom. They say home is where the heart is. Mine became a war zone at 2 a.m. when a screwdriver plunged into my shoulder. But the real wound wasn't physical. It was the chilling laugh of my parents as they watched, completely unaware I'd already sent the signal to burn their world to ash. The suffocating Arizona summer air clung to me, thick and heavy, inside my childhood bedroom. My heart was a frantic drum, a trapped bird against my ribs. Before the door crashed open, before the world dissolved into splintered wood and blinding pain, there was a whisper. It slithered under my bedroom door, a venomous, drunken hiss from the hallway. "Think you're somebody now, huh, little soldier girl?" Jake's voice was slurred with cheap beer, probably the brand Robert favored, but the hatred cut like glass. "Come back here to show off?" I lay perfectly still, the thin cotton sheets sticking to my skin in the oppressive Phoenix heat. The ceiling fan just stirred the soupy air. Every instinct screamed, assess, identify egress, neutralize. But this wasn't a training field. This was my room, with its faded floral wallpaper, and the monster outside was my stepbrother. I did what the little girl inside me always did. I played dead. I didn't answer, praying to a god I wasn't sure I believed in anymore, hoping he'd stumble away. But silence to a bully isn't a deterrent, it's gasoline. The heavy thud against the door made me flinch. A shoulder. Purposeful. "I know you're in there, you stuck-up witch." My breath caught. This was different. This wasn't his usual verbal garbage, the casual insults tossed at dinner. This was coiled, ready to strike. The doorknob rattled violently, like shaking bones. His grunts of frustration, then a chilling silence. I knew what was coming. The door exploded off its hinges, a sound that shook the house. The cheap wood splintered, the door slamming against the wall. It didn't just break a door, it shattered the last fragile illusion I could ever be safe here. He stood in the ruined doorway, a hulking silhouette against the dim hall light. The air became thick, heavy with stale beer, sweat, and the electric charge of impending violence. The ensuing chaos wasn't a fight, it was a hunt, a terrifying, almost silent waltz of violence. Only ragged breaths and the soft thud of my bare feet on the hardwood. He lunged. The screwdriver glinted under the moonlight. My training kicked in. I sidestepped, his clumsy momentum carrying him past me. My hand shot out, not to strike, but to control, my fingers trying to clamp his wrist, to use his weight against him. But he was bigger, heavier, fueled by a blind, drunken rage my discipline couldn't account for in this cramped space. He shook me off with a furious roar, my grip breaking easily. He swung again, I dodged, my back hitting the wall. The cheap poster of the Andromeda Galaxy, up since I was 12, crinkled behind me. A dead end. Nowhere to go. I saw the third lunge coming. My hand came up to block, to parry, but I was a fraction too slow. He shoved me hard against the wall, my head smacking the drywall with a dull thud. For a dizzying moment, I was off balance. And then he struck. The blow wasn't aimed at my face, but lower. The tip of the screwdriver connected with my right shoulder. No sharp slice of metal, just a hideous, dry crack that vibrated through my entire skeleton. Louder than any gunshot. My clavicle snapped. The force drove the screwdriver through bone and muscle, pinning my shoulder and me to the wall. A scream, raw and primal, tore from my throat. Pure, unadulterated agony that seemed endless. But the physical pain, as blinding as it was nothing compared to the horror that came next. Footsteps pounded down the hall. My father, Robert, and my stepmother, Veronica, appeared in the shattered doorway. Hope, stupid and desperate, flared in my chest. They'll help me. They have to. My eyes, wide with pain and terror, pleaded with them. A prayer without words. Dad, Mom, please, I'm hurt. Help me. But the eyes that looked back didn't belong to parents seeing an injured daughter. They belonged to spectators, seeing an inconvenience. Robert's face was a mask of weary resignation. He sighed, a long, put-upon sound, as if I'd spilled milk. Veronica smiled. Not a real smile, a smirk of pure, triumphant malice. A victor's grin. Then she spoke, her voice a slow, sweet poison. "Oh, now Kenya, honey," she cooed, tilting her head. "Don't be so dramatic." The words sucked the air from my lungs. Dramatic. The world tilted, the edges of my vision blurring. Through the fog of pain, I heard Robert's voice, devoid of concern, delivering the verdict. "Her brother's drunk," he said to Veronica, not to me. "She always did love the attention." And then they laughed. Not loud, just a low, shared chuckle. That sound, that soft, dismissive sound, was 1,000 times more brutal than the screwdriver in my shoulder. My father didn't just abandon me, he took the side of my attacker. He signed, sealed, and delivered the death sentence of our relationship with a laugh. Something inside me snapped, cleaner and more final than my collarbone. My left hand, uninjured, trembled uncontrollably, but moved with a will of its own. Fighting through waves of shock and nausea, it found the cell phone in my pajama pants. My thumb slid across the screen, clumsy and slick with sweat. 3 letters. SOS. It wasn't just a call for help. It was a vow. In that moment, as their laughter echoed, the scared, hopeful girl named Kenya died on that floor, pinned to the wall. From the ashes of that betrayal, Private Hayes, a soldier, was born. I hit send, not hoping for rescue, but with the cold, hard certainty of a sniper pulling a trigger. They would pay for this. The last thing I saw before the world faded to black wasn't Jake's snarling face or the glint of the screwdriver, but the smug, satisfied smile on Veronica's face. The game had changed. I'd just fired the first shot. I drifted back to consciousness, slowly pulled from a deep, dark well by a steady, rhythmic beeping. My eyes fluttered open, assaulted by the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. Sterile white walls, the faint smell of antiseptic, a thin, scratchy blanket. The pain in my shoulder was a dull, throbbing fire, a constant reminder of the metal, the bone, the betrayal. I was alone utterly. This cold, sterile loneliness felt horribly familiar, a ghost haunting me for years. The heart monitor faded, the cold seeped into my bones, pulling me back through time, back 4 years to a different holiday, a different room full of people where I was just as isolated. Not by white walls, but by the smiling faces of the people I called family. It was Thanksgiving. I was 15, holding a miracle, a letter on thick cream cardstock from the University of Arizona at Tucson. An acceptance letter, not for college yet, but for their prestigious summer astrophysics program for gifted high school students. To me, it wasn't just a letter. It was a golden ticket. Proof, tangible and real, that the girl who was always too quiet, too studious, too much, wasn't useless. It was a shield against Veronica's passive aggression and Jake's overt contempt. I kept it folded in my jeans pocket all day, the crisp edges a secret comfort against my thigh. The house buzzed with chaotic Thanksgiving energy. Roasting turkey and pumpkin pie spice mingled with Aunt Susan's overpowering perfume. The Arizona Cardinals game droned on TV, a backdrop to loud, overlapping conversations. For a few fleeting moments, surrounded by that noise and warmth, I allowed myself a dangerous fantasy, that I belonged. Dinner was a loud affair around the oversized table. Turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, green bean casserole. I waited, heart hammering, for the perfect lull. Then I took a deep breath, pulled the letter from my pocket, and slid it across to Robert. "Dad," I whispered, "I got this." He picked it up, confusion flickering as he read. Something incredible happened. He smiled. A real, genuine smile, one I hadn't seen directed at me in years. It reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. For a single, breathtaking second, I felt it. "Well, I'll be," he said, holding up the letter. "Veronica, honey, read this out loud. Let everyone hear what Kenya has been up to." That was the moment the trap was sprung. Veronica took the letter, her expression beaming maternal pride. She theatrically placed reading glasses on her nose, red nails tapping the paper. "Of course, dear," she chirped. She cleared her throat, commanding the attention of the table. "Oh, everyone, listen to this. Kenya has been accepted into the University of Arizona's summer camp for cognitive special support. She delivered the line with saccharine enthusiasm. Isn't that just wonderful? We must always support her efforts, even if she is a little different. The words hung for a silent heartbeat. My aunts and uncles exchanged confused glances. Then the dam broke. A snicker from my cousin. A nervous titter from Aunt Susan. Jake threw his head back, a loud, braying laugh filling the room. The dream shattered. I was frozen in my chair, blood draining from my face. My world tilted. No, I stammered, my voice small foreign. That's not what it says. It's for gifted students in astrophysics. Veronica looked at me, a perfect mask of gentle concern. She patted my hand. Oh, sweetie, don't be embarrassed, she said, dripping with false sympathy. We're proud of you no matter what. With that single, devastating sentence, she sealed my fate. She took my greatest achievement, the brightest star in my sky, and extinguished it, reframing it as a disability. And she did it with the loving smile of a saint. I felt hot tears welling. I looked desperately at Robert, begging him to intervene, to correct her, to say something. But he just sat there, that rare smile gone, replaced by a tight, uncomfortable expression. He wouldn't meet my eyes. No one would. The rest of my family looked down at their plates or offered weak, pitying smiles, fully believing Veronica's cool eye. A single tear escaped, rolling down my cheek, landing with a soft plop in my mashed potatoes. It created a tiny salty pool. That single tear was the loneliest thing in the entire world. That night, crying silently in my room, a soft knock came. It was Robert. Hope, that stubborn, foolish thing, flickered. He was here to apologize, to comfort me. But he didn't come in. He just stood in the doorway, blocking the light. You embarrassed Veronica tonight, he said, his voice cold and flat. No warmth, no fatherly concern, just disappointment. You know she didn't mean it. She was just trying to include you. Now you need to go out there and apologize to her for ruining the party. The words hit me harder than any physical blow. I was being ordered to apologize to the person who had just publicly humiliated me. My tears stopped. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. I looked at the man who was supposed to protect me, and I finally saw him for what he was, a coward, willing to sacrifice his own daughter for a moment's peace in his second marriage. That was the moment I learned the deepest cuts don't leave visible scars. I didn't go out and apologize. I stayed in my room, listening to their laughter downstairs. Later, after everyone left, I took the acceptance letter from my desk. I looked at the proud Longhorn logo of the University of Arizona, at the words that had felt like a promise. Then, slowly and deliberately, I tore it into tiny, irreparable pieces. I let the confetti of my broken dreams fall into the trash can. On that Thanksgiving night, I truly understood. In this house, my success was worse than my failure. It was a crime, and it was a scar I'd carry long after the bruises faded. I thought joining the army would be an escape. A clean break, a place where my value was measured only by performance, discipline, strength. I was wrong. The ghosts of my past didn't just follow me to basic training at Fort Benning. They enlisted right alongside me. They wore my uniform, slept in my bunk, and screamed louder than any drill sergeant. Basic training is designed to break you down and build you back up. The problem was I was already broken. Constant noise, sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, all manageable. The real enemy lived inside my head. It happened most often on the obstacle course. Low crawling under barbed wire, mud seeping in, muscles screaming. My drill sergeant, a man whose voice was a permanent roar, got in my face, spit flying. Hayes, you are too slow. Are you weak? In that moment, his voice faded, replaced by Veronica's sickly sweet tone. The poor thing. Her voice echoed. She's just not built like the other kids. She has to try twice as hard. My arms turned to lead. My movements became sluggish. Then the climbing wall. As I slipped, boots failing to find purchase, I didn't hear my platoon's groan. I heard Jake's braying laughter from that Thanksgiving. Useless. Years of psychological warfare had installed a saboteur deep within my psyche, an inner critic more relentless than any physical enemy. It whispered their words with every push-up, every grueling march, every failed attempt. I was on the verge of quitting, of ringing that bell. A terrifying thought took root. What if they were right? What if I really was a weak, attention-seeking failure? The rope was my nemesis, a thick, unforgiving braid of twine. It mocked me. Day after day, I'd fail. A few feet up, arms burning, grip slipping, and the voices started their chorus. I'd slide back into the dirt, shame burning hotter than the Georgia sun. One afternoon, after another pathetic failure, I sat alone, cleaning my rifle, trying not to cry. A shadow fell over me. Sergeant Morales. She spoke in a low, controlled voice that carried immense weight. She didn't yell. She observed, her eyes sharp and dark, missing nothing. She stood there, watching. I braced for a lecture. Instead, she knelt, picking up a small stone. Your problem isn't in your muscles, Private, she said, calm, her gaze direct. It's up here. She tapped her temple. Who are you fighting on that rope? Is it you, or is it some ghost you brought from home? The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. So accurate, they knocked the wind out of me. For the first time, I felt seen. She didn't see a failed recruit. She saw a soldier fighting a hidden war. I couldn't answer, just stared, throat thick with unshed tears. She held my gaze, then stood. Figure out who the real enemy is, Hayes, she said, and walked away. Her words rattled in my head for days. A ghost you brought from home. She was right. I wasn't fighting the rope. I was fighting Veronica's pity and Jake's contempt. I was fighting the 15-year-old girl who had her dreams torn up. That weekend, during precious downtime, I escaped to the base library, a quiet sanctuary. Browsing, I found a book, Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. I'd never heard of her, but the title intrigued me. I sat down and read. It felt like someone had cracked open my skull, laying bare my deepest fears. Shame. The fear of not being good enough. True courage wasn't about being fearless, but showing up, even when you couldn't control the outcome. Then I read a sentence that stopped my heart. Vulnerability is not weakness. I read it again. Vulnerability is not weakness. All my life, I'd been taught the opposite. Veronica, Robert, saw it as an inconvenience. To Jake, it was a target. I'd come to the army seeking impenetrable armor, convinced that was the only way to be strong. But this book was telling me the very thing I tried to bury. My history, my hurt, my feeling of being broken wasn't my weakness. It was the birthplace of my courage. It was a paradigm shift so profound it left me breathless. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. A week later was our final obstacle course test. Standing before the rope, my old dread crept in. I heard the ghosts whispering, "You're going to fail. You're not good enough." But this time, a new voice answered, quiet but clear, "Vulnerability is not weakness." I took a deep breath. The rough rope chafed my palms. I started to climb. My muscles screamed. The ghosts assaulted. "The poor thing," Veronica cooed. I pulled higher. Jake's laughter echoed. Useless. Another pull. My knuckles were raw. This wasn't a climb powered by biceps. It was pure, defiant will. Every upward pull was rebellion. Every inch gained was telling the ghosts they had no more power. I wasn't the broken little girl anymore. I was a soldier. A fighter. When my hand finally closed over the top, the shouts of other recruits faded. Just me, between dirt and sky. Then a whoop from someone in my platoon, and the air erupted in cheers. I slid down, hands burning, body trembling. Across the field, Sergeant Morales watched. She wasn't cheering. Then she gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. More validation than Robert had ever given me. I had done it. I had conquered the rope. But as I caught my breath, a new, unsettling question took root. I conquered the rope, but how could I win this war when I couldn't even win the one inside my own head? The cheers faded into a dull roar as I walked away. I had won. Silenced the ghosts, earned a victory. But finding a secluded spot on the bleachers, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving a profound, unsettling hollowness. The victory felt like one battle in a war without end. The real enemy wasn't a rope in Georgia. It was a permanent resident in my mind, a lonely, desolate battlefield. I sat, lost in thought, as the sky bled from dusty blue to orange and pink. The distant sounds of my platoon celebrating amplified my isolation. Then I saw her. Sergeant Morales walking towards me, her stride purposeful. She said nothing, just sat a few feet away, handing me a cold bottle of water. Condensation cool against my sweaty, calloused palm. We sat in silence, watching the last rays of sun. Friday night, she finally said, her voice even and calm, breaking the quiet. My place. Making chili. If you don't have plans. I stared, stunned. So simple, so casual, yet monumental. Not an order. Not pity. An invitation. In my entire life, I couldn't remember an adult inviting home with such straightforward, unconditional kindness. My family's invitations were always transactions, barbed with expectations and a hidden price tag. This was different. This felt like a lifeline quietly thrown. I couldn't find my voice, just nodded, a lump in my throat. Friday evening, I stood outside her apartment, knuckles hovering, suddenly terrified. What am I doing? What will we even talk about? Before anxiety could convince me to run, the door opened. Sergeant Morales, out of uniform, in a t-shirt and jeans. Smaller, more human. Hey, Hayes, she said with a small smile. You found it. Come on in. First thing that hit me was the smell. Not the sterile lemon of my stepmother's house, but warm, rich, real. Cinnamon, cumin, old books, worn leather. Her apartment was small, unassuming, lived in. A stark contrast to the perfect, magazine-ready prison I grew up in. No expensive paintings, just framed photos of Morales with army buddies in dusty, sun-bleached places. Souvenirs, a painted Russian doll, a carved elephant, a heavy brass compass. A huge, graying German shepherd lumbered over, sniffed my hand, then leaned his body against my leg with a contented sigh. I scratched behind his ears. That's Gunnar, Morales said. Don't mind him. He's decided you're acceptable. She didn't pepper me with questions about my past or why I was quiet. She treated me like a normal person. Asked if I wanted a Coke. We sat on her worn couch, talking about wonderfully mundane things. Complained about the Arizona humidity, made fun of a cheesy action movie. She asked casually, so, how are you feeling today? So genuine, so free of agenda, it almost made me cry. When the chili was ready, we sat at her small kitchen table. She ladled a generous amount into a thick ceramic bowl, followed by a hefty slice of cornbread. The chili was dark, rich, with just the right spice, warming me from the inside out. As I took the first bite, a profound realization washed over me. This was the first meal in years where I wasn't on high alert. I wasn't mentally rehearsing sentences, terrified of saying the wrong thing. Not analyzing every expression, deciphering hidden meanings behind fake smiles. The silence wasn't the tense, judgmental quiet of my family's dinner table. It was comfortable, easy, filled only by our spoons scraping against bowls and Gunnar snoring. It tasted better than any Thanksgiving turkey. After dinner, we sat on her small front porch in old rocking chairs, watching fireflies blink in the humid twilight. In that quiet, safe space, the words tumbled out before I could stop them. My family, I started, voice barely a whisper, trembling. They think I'm a disappointment. I hadn't planned to say it. The confession just broke free. Morales didn't respond immediately. She just rocked, chair chains groaning softly. I held my breath, waiting for pity, judgment, awkward platitudes. They never came. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, clear in the darkness. The army doesn't care where you came from, Private. We care where you're going. And the people who really matter will help you get there, not hold you back. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. A physical weight, carried for a decade, had just lifted. Someone believed in me without needing proof, without asking anything in return. Before I left, at the door, Morales held out a small, black, pocket-sized notebook and a pen. If things at home get bad, she said, her voice shifted. No longer the off-duty friend, but the seasoned sergeant. Serious, sharp, strategic. Don't just take it. Document. Date, time, who said what, who did what. Turn your feelings into data. She met my eyes, her gaze intense. Data is ammunition, Hayes. Never go into a fight without it. I took the notebook. It felt heavier than it should. Weighted with significance. That simple advice changed everything. It was a battle plan. A weapon. It reframed my entire existence. I was no longer a helpless victim enduring random attacks. I was a soldier, a private under her command, on an intelligence-gathering mission behind enemy lines. The war was far from over, but for the first time, I finally felt like I had a fighting chance. My first leave from basic training wasn't a homecoming. It was a tactical insertion into hostile territory. Driving back to the Phoenix suburbs, hot, familiar dread coiled in my stomach. I clutched Sergeant Morales's small black notebook, a hard comfort in my duffel bag. I was a soldier now with a strategy. But I knew the enemy within these walls was more insidious than any I might face on a battlefield. The first few days were a fragile truce, a performance of strained civility. Veronica was sickeningly sweet, saying how proud they were. Jake's sullen avoidance was a blessing. Robert was a ghost, vague smiles, but no eye contact. I played my part, non-committal answers, senses on high alert, waiting. The attack came late on the third night. A soft knock just after midnight. I knew it was her. Veronica stood in her silk nightgown, a mask of sorrow, eyes glistening with rehearsed tears, a masterclass in manipulation. "Kenya, honey," she whispered, voice cracking as she glided in. "It's your father." She dabbed at dry eyes. "He's not doing well. Since you left, he's just lost. The doctor thinks it might be severe depression. Your absence has been really hard on him." Expertly aimed darts of guilt. A sickening pang hit my chest. The old Kenya, desperate for affection, wanted to believe her, to feel responsible. Responsibility, even for his pain, felt like a connection. I almost fell for it. Almost offered my savings. But Morales's voice cut through the fog. Data is ammunition. I kept my face neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, words like stones. "What does the doctor recommend?" Veronica's eyes lit up. "He's recommended a special therapy program, a wonderful facility, but it's very expensive. With Jake's troubles, money is tight." She looked at me, pleading. I didn't want to ask, but with your army salary. I held her gaze. "I'll have to think about it." The old Kenya would have agreed. The new Kenya was buying time. The next morning, I waited until they were gone. The house was blessedly silent. I walked to Robert's study, a room I was never allowed to enter as a child. My heart hammered, not with fear, but with cold, determined resolve. This wasn't snooping. It was reconnaissance. I didn't have to look hard. In the top desk drawer, under old bills, was a folder. Inside, no doctor's referral. Instead, a thick stack of threatening letters from the casino in Biloxi, Mississippi. All addressed to Jake. The amount he owed was staggering. Behind them, a final warning from our bank about the mortgage. They weren't struggling because Robert was sad. They were drowning because my stepbrother was a gambling addict. The rage that filled me was cold and sharp, a focused tactical fury. No depression, just a web of lies designed to bleed me dry. Data is ammunition. That evening, I was ready. I found Veronica in the kitchen, waiting until we were alone. My phone in my pocket, voice memo app running. "I was in Dad's study this morning," I began, voice steady. "I saw the letters from the casino about Jake's debt." Veronica's sorrowful mother persona vanished. Her face hardened, eyes turning to steel. The mask was off. "So what?" she snapped, low, dangerous. "He's your brother. You have a responsibility to help him. What's the point of that military paycheck if you're not going to use it to take care of your family?" "He's not my brother," I stated calmly, "and I'm not paying for his damned gambling addiction." Her eyes narrowed. The fake sweetness gone, replaced by pure venom. "You think you're so much better than us now in your little uniform?" She stepped closer, her voice a low, venomous hiss. "Don't you forget who raised you. You will regret being so ungrateful, Kenya. I'll make sure of it. I didn't flinch. Just stood. When she finished, I turned and walked away. In my pocket, my phone had captured every word. Click. My first piece of hard evidence. My refusal detonated a Cold War. Jake, no longer hiding his resentment, began petty sabotage. Accidentally knocking over coffee on my book. Using all the hot water. Childish, pathetic acts, relentless, designed to wear me down. I said nothing. Just documented everything. The final straw came days before my leave ended. I went in my closet for my spare dress uniform, meticulously pressed. My pride, a symbol of everything I'd accomplished alone. It wasn't there. Cold dread. I searched, then found it. Thrown in a heap in the corner of Jake's closet, crumpled, covered in dust and what looked like grease. A deliberate act of desecration, a silent, unambiguous message. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I calmly took out my phone, hands perfectly steady. Photographed the crumpled, stained uniform. A close-up of the grease. Picked it up. Walked back to my room, locked the door. My arsenal was growing. The Cold War was at breaking point. My quiet defiance, my refusal to be their ATM, was a simmering insult to Jake's fragile ego. Petty sabotage wasn't working. I wasn't breaking. So he escalated, to symbolically burn me to the ground. I just returned from a run, feeling strong, clear-headed. As I reached for the back door, he stepped from the garage, blocking my path. Bloodshot eyes, twisted sneer, air thick with cheap beer. "You're not going to give me the money, are you?" He slurred, a low growl. An accusation, not a question. I didn't take the bait. "I told you, Jake, I'm not paying for your mistakes." A dark, manic grin. "Fine," he spat, "then I'll just take something else of yours." Before I could react, he shoved past me, storming into the house. A cold shock of adrenaline. I sprinted after him, heart hammering. "Jake, what are you doing?" I followed him to my bedroom. Door wide open. He was at my closet, pulling out the one thing he knew was sacred, the heavy garment bag holding my Army service uniform, my Class A. Not just clothes. A testament, earned through blood, sweat, and tears. Crisp blue fabric, polished brass buttons, gleaming metals, sharp creases I'd spent hours perfecting. The symbol of my escape, my new identity, my honor. The physical manifestation of the oath sworn, not just to my country, but to myself. "Jake, stop!" I screamed, panic rising. "Don't you touch that." He just laughed, a wild, unhinged sound. He turned, holding the uniform like a trophy, eyes filled with triumphant hatred. "This is what you care about, right? This stupid costume." He bolted, heading for the back door. I ran after him, mind screaming. Out into the glaring Arizona sun of the backyard. He dragged the garment bag, ripped the uniform out, threw it onto the yellowing grass. Just then, the sliding glass door opened. Veronica and Robert stepped out. Not alarmed. Didn't move to intervene. Spectators who'd paid for front row seats. Jake saw his audience, his cruelty swelled. He puffed his chest, shouted, voice carrying across fences. "Hey everybody, come see the little soldier girl and her clown suit. The piece of trash who thinks she's too good for her own family." My blood ran cold. I lunged forward, a desperate, primal need to save my uniform. But a hand clamped hard on my arm, holding me back. "Robert." I turned, eyes pleading. "Dad, stop him, please." He just shook his head, face a mask of weary resignation. Wouldn't even look at me. He looked at the uniform on the ground. "Just let him be, Kenya," his voice flat. "It's just a set of clothes." The word struck with the force of a physical blow. In that single sentence, he invalidated everything I was, everything I'd fought to become. He erased my struggle, my sacrifice, my pride. Jake grabbed the red plastic gas can by the lawnmower. The sharp, nauseating smell filled the air as he poured it over the dark blue jacket, soaking the fabric, splashing it over the medals, ribbons, rank insignia. "No!" I screamed, struggling against Robert's grip, but he held me fast. Then Jake pulled out a matchbook. Struck a match. The small flame flickered in the sunlight, a tiny, terrible star. He tossed it. The world erupted in a whoosh of orange and black. Fire exploded to life. A hungry, roaring beast. It devoured the uniform instantly. I watched in horror as flames licked the fabric, curling edges into black ash. Colorful ribbons blistered, melted into unrecognizable plastic slag. The very symbol of my honor, consumed in a bonfire of his jealous rage. I stopped struggling. Just watched it burn. I tore my eyes from the fire and looked at my parents. Not smiling, but eyes filled with quiet, sickening satisfaction. The look of bullies who dragged their victim down to their level. In their minds, they had won. In that instant, something shifted. The hot, frantic panic washed away by terrifyingly calm. Tears evaporated. Screams died. A profound, glacial stillness settled over me. I turned slowly, looked directly at Robert, his hand still on my arm. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke each word with cold, deliberate precision, cutting through the crackle of flames like shards of ice. "Let me go." He blinked, startled by my tone. Something in my voice, a finality he'd never heard, made him flinch. His grip loosened. He let go. I walked forward, steps even, measured, until I stood a few feet from the smoldering ruin. Jake stood there, smug, victorious. I didn't look at the ashes. I looked right into his eyes. Didn't shout. Didn't cry. I spoke loudly enough for all three to hear clearly. "This is the last time," my voice devoid of emotion. "The absolute last time any of you will touch what is mine. The last time you will disrespect me. The war you wanted? You've got it." Then I turned my back on them. On the ashes. On the entire toxic wasteland of my childhood. I walked back into the house, up the stairs, locked the door. I pulled out my phone. Hands perfectly steady. Sent a short encrypted text to Sergeant Morales. "Need to talk. Urgent." The Cold War was over. The hot war was about to begin. And I finally realized the incident in the backyard was just a prelude. The main assault was coming tonight. That was the night Jake would come for me with a screwdriver. That was the night it all truly began. Locked in my room, the smell of gasoline and burnt fabric clinging to the air, I stared at the single word on my phone, acknowledged. The reply from Sergeant Morales was immediate. A beacon of calm in the chaotic aftermath. My heart hammered, but the cold resolve from the backyard hardened into something solid, strategic. The shaking stopped. I was no longer a daughter in shock. I was a soldier awaiting orders. My phone rang less than 5 minutes later. Caller ID, Morales A. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hayes." No preamble, no gentle, "How are you?" Her voice was crisp, professional, all business. Exactly what I needed. "Situation report, private," she commanded. In a low, steady voice, I gave her the facts. I reported the incident in the backyard as if describing an enemy engagement. Detailed the destruction of my Class A uniform, my parents' complicity as witnesses, Veronica's final unambiguous threats. Recounted. Years of manipulation, financial exploitation, the systematic campaign to undermine my confidence. I told her about the evidence, the voice memo, photos of the ruined uniform, Jake's gambling debts. I spoke for 10 minutes straight, uninterrupted. A brief silence. I heard her breathing slow, controlled. "Good," she finally said. The single word validated everything. "You have your ammunition. Now you need a general. Write this down." I grabbed the black notebook. "Michael Lee. He's with an organization in Tucson called the Warriors Aegis, a pro bono legal group for veterans. Lee is a former JAG prosecutor. He's tough, smart, and he doesn't lose. Tell him Elena Morales sent you." And Hayes, her voice grew serious. "From this moment on, you do not engage with them alone. All contact goes through your lawyer." "Understood." "Huh," I replied, the military affirmation coming naturally. I had my mission. The next day, I drove to Tucson. The Warriors Aegis office was in an old, unassuming brick building downtown. Creaky wooden floors, faint smell of old paper. Not flashy, but solid, serious. Michael Lee was a compact Asian-American man in his late 40s. Smaller than expected, dressed in a sharp suit, but his presence filled the room. Sharp, intelligent eyes of a hawk. He missed nothing. He shook my hand firmly. "Sergeant Morales called ahead," he said, direct. He gestured for me to sit. "She holds you in high regard." He didn't ask how I felt. Got straight to the point. "Show me your evidence." This was a language I understood. I laid my file on his polished mahogany desk, the voice recording of Veronica's threat, time-stamped photos of my desecrated uniform, copies of Jake's gambling debts from the Biloxi casino, bank statements showing money I'd sent under duress. Chronological order. A cold, hard litany of my family's incidents. He examined each piece, expression unreadable. Put on reading glasses to study fine print. Played the audio, listening intently. Silence stretched, thick with tension. My hope hung in the balance. Finally, he took off his glasses, looked up. He nodded slowly, a single decisive gesture. "This is more than enough," his voice laced with quiet intensity, sending a jolt of relief. "We have a case." For the first time since this nightmare began, a flicker of genuine hope. Not just my pain. A case. Real. Something that could be fought and won. "They are bullies," Private Hazley continued, steepling his fingers. "And bullies only understand one thing, a superior show of force. We are not filing a police report. Not yet. That's a messy public battle. We are setting a trap. A Trojan horse." He leaned forward, eyes gleaming with strategic brilliance. "They want money, so we're going to let them think they're about to get a windfall." He laid out the plan. Audacious. Terrifying. "You're going to call them. You will tell them you've reconsidered, that you were wrong, and you will agree to help with Jake's debt. You will offer to sign the paperwork to leverage the equity in the house, the portion Robert left you in his will, but," he held up a finger, "the signing will not happen at a bank. It will happen here, in this conference room. That will be our kill box." My blood ran cold. Go back there, face them, lie to their faces. Impossible. But I looked at Michael Lee, at the unwavering confidence in his eyes, and remembered who I was. A soldier. This was my assignment. That evening, I sat in my car in a quiet parking lot, heart pounding. Time to deploy the bait. Deep breaths, summoning every ounce of acting ability. I thought about the scared 15-year-old at Thanksgiving. I channeled all that vulnerability into my voice and dialed Veronica's number. She picked up on the second ring. "What do you want, Kenya?" Cold, hostile. I let out a shaky, manufactured sob. "Mom," I choked, hating the word. "I've been thinking, and you were right." I sniffled, making it sound pathetic. "Family is everything. I was wrong to be so selfish. I'll sign the papers. I'll do whatever it takes to help." A stunned silence. I could almost hear the greedy gears turning. Then her voice, dripping with false, syrupy sweetness. "Oh, Kenya, honey, I knew you'd do the right thing. Your father will be so relieved. You're such a good girl." The praise I once craved now turned my stomach. "My legal advisor for my military benefits said he needs to oversee the signing," I added, repeating Lee's script. "We have to do it at his office in Tucson." "Of course, honey, whatever you need," she chirped, completely oblivious. She didn't question it. Greed had made her blind. They had taken the bait. The trap was set. I hung up, hand trembling slightly, not from fear, but adrenaline. I took a deep, steady breath. Walking back into the fire. Into the war zone. But this time, not alone. And this time, I held all the weapons. The day of the meeting, a strange, profound calm. Not absence of fear, but clarity. I was a soldier entering a planned engagement. Knew the terrain, the objective, had superior firepower. I wore my Class A uniform, the replacement, painstakingly acquired, not as armor, but as a statement. When I walked into Michael Lee's conference room, I was not Kenya, the broken daughter. I was Private Hayes, United States Army. I was there first, seated beside Lee at the head of a long, polished table. He was professionally calm, arranging files. Across the room, in a chair, a uniformed Tucson police officer, calm but watchful. By the window, looking out, an older man with a kind face and sad eyes, Mr. Henderson, my former next-door neighbor, a retired cop. Pieces in place. Then the door opened. They walked in, the victors arriving for their prize. Beaming, radiating smug, triumphant energy. Jake practically bouncing, already spending money. Going to get me a new truck, he whispered loudly to Robert, who clapped his back. Veronica glided to me, maternal pride a mask. She placed a hand on my uniformed shoulder. I'm so proud of you, Kenya. I knew you'd come around. The touch felt like a spider, but I didn't flinch. Looked past her, face blank. They took seats opposite us. Greed made them oblivious. Didn't notice the officer or Mr. Henderson. Only saw the stack of papers, their salvation. I sat in silence, back ramrod straight. Waited for my general to begin the assault. Good afternoon, Lee began, smooth, professional. He pushed a document across. This is the proposed agreement to leverage Ms. Hayes's equity in the property. He let them look, savoring their moment. However, he continued, tone shifting, sharper, before we proceed, we have a few supplementary materials to review as part of our due diligence. He picked up a remote. The large screen flickered to life. First image, high-resolution photo of my Class A uniform, smoldering on the grass. Jake snorted. Oh, come on. That was just a joke. Lighten up. Lee didn't acknowledge him. Click. Next image, close-up of collection. Letters from the Biloxi Casino. Jake's name, staggering amount owed, clearly visible. Jake's smile faltered. Click. Copy of the bank statement showing my wire transfer to them. Robert shifted uncomfortably. The smug atmosphere evaporated, replaced by thick, cold tension. And finally, Lee said, putting the remote down, picking up a small digital audio player. He pressed a button. Veronica's voice, cold, venomous, filled the silent room. You think you're so much better than us now, don't you? In your little uniform. You will regret being so ungrateful, Kenya. I'll make sure of it. Color drained from Veronica's face. She looked slapped. That's illegal, she stammered, a shrill squeak. You recorded me without my permission. A thin, cold smile touched Michael Lee's lips. Actually, ma'am, in the state of Arizona, we operate under one-party consent, and Private Hayes consented. So it's perfectly admissible. Then the dam broke. You little witch. Jake roared, slamming fists, lunging to his feet. I'll destroy you. Instantly, the police officer was out of her chair, hand on her holstered firearm. Sit down, she commanded, voice ringing with authority. Jake froze, face purple, slowly, shakily sinking back. Robert looked about to faint. Lee let the tension hang, then gestured to Mr. Henderson, who turned. And this, Lee said, calm, steady, is Mr. Henderson. I believe you know him. Your neighbor for 15 years. He's also a retired detective with the Phoenix PD. Veronica and Robert stared. Faces pure, unadulterated horror. Recognition dawned. Mr. Henderson, Lee continued, was in his yard on the day of the incident. He is prepared to testify under oath about witnessing Jake's verbal threats, the act of arson, and your presence as complicit, and I quote, cheering spectators. It was over. I saw it in their eyes. The fight gone, replaced by stark, cold terror of cornered animals. Veronica stared at Robert, mouth opening, closing, no sound. They had lost, and they knew it. Lee let the silence stretch, crushing them. Then he slid a different set of documents across the table. 2 pages stapled. You have 2 options, his voice like steel. Option 1. I take this entire file, the audio, photos, financial records, and Mr. Henderson's sworn testimony, and walk it down the hall to the district attorney's office. Jake will face felony charges for assault and arson. You and your husband, he looked at Veronica, will face charges for conspiracy and felony fraud. You will all likely face jail time. He paused, letting words sink in. Or there is option 2. He tapped the 2-page document. You sign this agreement. It states you relinquish all and any claim to the house, transferring the deed entirely to Private Hayes. You will vacate the premises within 30 days. Furthermore, you will sign a legally binding no-contact order. You will never again attempt to contact, harass, or approach Private Hayes in any way, shape, or form for the rest of your lives. 30 days. On the 31st day, I stood alone in the doorway of my childhood home, new key in hand. The moving truck had rumbled away the afternoon before, a final, unceremonious departure. The house was mine, terrifyingly silent. I walked through empty rooms, footsteps echoing on bare floors. Silence of physical presence, a heavy blanket. They'd taken all furniture, leaving ghosts. Faded squares on walls where Veronica's curated family photos, the ones never including me, had hung. As if they'd never been here, yet their presence was everywhere. I made my way to my old bedroom, scene of the incident. My hand instinctively went to the wall by the door frame. There it was, a small, deep indentation in the drywall, a permanent scar from Jake's screwdriver. I traced its outline. I had one. Legally. Owned the house. They were gone, bound by a no-contact order. But standing there, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the ceasefire after a brutal war. Fighting over, but battlefield-scarred, cost immense. The last few weeks were a blur of logistics and paperwork. Lee handled everything with ruthless efficiency. They signed the papers in his office without another word, faces pale, drawn. Packed under a court-appointed supervisor. No dramatic confrontations, no final showdowns. They simply vanished, leaving a vast, echoing emptiness. I walked to the kitchen, sat on the floor, back against cool cabinets. Forgiveness. The word rolled in my head for days. I thought of my grandfather reading from his worn Bible on the porch in San Diego. A line he quoted, Jesus on the cross, forgive them for they know not what they do. As a child, I thought it was about their ignorance. Now I understood. It wasn't about them. Forgiveness wasn't absolution for the guilty. It was liberation for the wounded. Not excusing their actions. Refusing to let their poison run through my veins. It was for my own peace. I knew I couldn't call Robert. A phone call would be an invitation for more manipulation. Instead, I found a pen, a single sheet of paper. Sat at the empty kitchen counter where he used to read the paper. Wrote him one final letter. Didn't accuse. Didn't list failures. Just told my truth. Dad, I wrote, I think I spent my entire life trying to earn a single genuine smile from you. Just one. But on the night I needed you most, the night I was bleeding in my own room, the smile you gave was for them. You chose your comfort over your daughter. I am done trying to earn something you are incapable of giving. My hand paused. I forgive you not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free from the weight of hating you. I deserve peace. Goodbye, Dad. I folded the letter, wrote his name, left it on the counter. A message in a bottle cast into an ocean I'd never visit again. That was my farewell. Days later, my phone buzzed. New voicemail. Robert's number. A knot of ice. Long moment, I stared, thumb hovering over delete. The soldier screamed to erase it, not let poison back in. But the little girl inside, foolishly, hoping, had to know. I pressed play. His voice was broken, trembling, I'd never heard it before. Thick with tears. Kenny, I got your letter. I'm so sorry. I was weak. I was a coward. Veronica. She had so much control. It was easier to just go along. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, just give me one more chance to make it right. Just one chance. I listened once, then again. The little girl inside wept, wanting to run back, to believe this broken man could be the father she always wanted. But the soldier stood firm. The soldier saw the truth. His apology wasn't for me. It was for him. Excuses. I was weak. I was a coward. She had control. Weakness was a reason, not an excuse. He was sorry he got caught, not sorry for what he did. Another tactic. Manipulation wrapped in remorse. I chose myself in the lawyer's office. Now I chose myself again. My thumb moved deliberately. Delete. The voicemail vanished. I had finally chosen myself, completely and irrevocably. The healing began a week later. Not with therapy or quiet reflection, but with the loud, cheerful chaos of friendship. Sergeant Morales showed up Saturday morning in a pickup truck. 2 other soldiers from my platoon with her, armed with paint rollers, toolboxes, and pizzas. Thought you could use some reinforcements, Private Morales grinned. For the first time, genuine laughter filled the rooms. We worked all weekend, scraping old paint, patching holes, the sounds of our work and easy camaraderie chasing away lingering ghosts. We turned the house from a mausoleum of painful memories into a blank canvas. Then I began to reclaim territory. Jake's old room, source of resentment, first to go. Painted walls calm gray, filled it with weight benches, a treadmill. My home gym, a place of strength, discipline. Robert's study, forbidden room, became my library. Filled shelves with books, turning a space of secrets into a haven of knowledge and peace. Rebuilding the house was rebuilding my soul. Every coat of fresh paint covered a scar. Every room repurposed took back a piece of my history, rewriting it. Transforming a prison built by others into a sanctuary I built for myself. Slow. Hard. But for the first time, it felt like coming home. Years have passed. The house that was a battlefield is now a sanctuary, filled with sunlight, the quiet hum of a life rebuilt. Ghosts long evicted, replaced by well-worn books, easy laughter of friends. The little girl pinned to a wall is gone. In her place, a woman, a sergeant in the United States Army. Me. Sometimes, in quiet mornings, before uniform, I stand before the mirror, look at my right shoulder. The scar is still there. Pale silvery line, faded with time, but it will never disappear. And I am grateful. For years, I saw it as shame, a brand of betrayal. I don't see it that way anymore. This scar is the most important medal I've earned. Not awarded in ceremony. Forged in fire and pain. Not a symbol of weakness. A permanent reminder of the war I survived, the moment I chose to fight back, the strength I never knew I had. My scar of honor. It tells a story I was finally ready to share. I knew my story couldn't end with me, safe in newly painted walls. The weapons Michael Lee and Sergeant Morales gave me, strategy, data, a voice, were too powerful to keep. I started working with Lee and the Warriors Aegis, volunteering weekends. We established a new outreach program, a specialized branch for service members trapped in silent horror of domestic mistreatment. Operation Open Eyes. Our mission: help soldiers and veterans recognize signs of mistreatment, provide legal and psychological resources, show them they're not alone. I became a lead advocate. The voice once silenced by fear now echoes in auditoriums, conference rooms on military bases. I stand on stages, tell my story. About gaslighting, manipulation, violence. Show them mistreatment doesn't always wear a monster's face. Sometimes family. Teach them to turn pain into data, fear into strategy, silence into testimony. The work is my purpose. A legacy built not on anger, but resilience. But my strength isn't just forged in the present, rooted in the past. Once a year, anniversary of my grandfather's passing, I make a pilgrimage. Drive the long, flat highway south to San Diego. Air grows thick, salty. Feels like coming home. Elena Morales always comes. Never asks why. She just knows. No longer my sergeant. My family. The kind you choose, who shows up. We walk the same beach where Grandpa taught me about sand dollars. I no longer search for the perfect shell. Don't need to hold it to feel his strength. I understand he wasn't talking about the shell. He was talking about me. His strength is part of me now. I stand at the water's edge, warm waves over bare feet. Talk to him in the whisper of the tide. I'm still fighting, Grandpa, I say to the endless blue horizon. And I'm winning. That's the story I carry. The legacy I share. It culminates in moments like this. I'm standing on a stage at Fort Benning, the base where I nearly broke. Auditorium filled with hundreds of new recruits. Pride, excitement, deep underlying fear. So young. They remind me of myself. I look out at them, then directly into the camera live streaming my speech worldwide. I raise my hand, gently touch the scar on my shoulder. My signature. They tried to pin me to a wall, I say, voice clear, steady, amplified. They tried to define me with their words, their anger, their violence. They tried to break me. But all they did was set me free. I let my eyes travel across the sea of young faces. Real strength isn't about never falling. It isn't about never feeling weak or scared. Real strength is what happens when you've been pinned down, betrayed, abandoned by the very people supposed to protect you, and you still find a way to send out your signal. I lean closer, voice dropping to intimate, personal tone. If you are hearing this right now and you feel pinned down, feel trapped in a battle no one else can see, I want you to know you are not fighting alone. Your signal has been received. In the comment section, I want you to do one simple thing. Write, "I see you." That's it. No story, no explanation, unless you want to share. Just, "I see you." Let's create a signal flare so bright it lights up the dark corners of the world. Let's show everyone fighting in silence that an entire army is here, ready to fight with them. Because no one deserves to fight alone.